Trigger warning, this podcast contains mature themes and discussions of cults, manipulation, and trauma. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Cultimatum, the culture of cults and human trafficking, where we expose the dark side of control, manipulation, and the human stories behind them. I'm Anonymous Andrew, executive producer and investigator into cult dynamics and coercive control.
And I'm Melody, a cult survivor and advocate for awareness and healing.
This is Cultimatum. Greetings and welcome back to another episode of Cultimatum Podcast, a culture of cults and human trafficking. And my name is Anonymous Andrew, and with me tonight is my co-host Melody. Hello, Melody.
Hello, Andrew. Today on Cultimatum, we're joined by Ryan Anthony Hernandez. Ryan is a survivor of a Doomsday cult known as the Alliance of the Holy Family International. After leaving, he made the decision not just to walk away, but also to speak out. On social media, he talks about cult dynamics, deconstruction, and the long road to healing. Ryan is also the host of the podcast, The Truth That Heals, where he creates the space for honest conversations about healing, identity, and recovery after a high control belief system. His voice is thoughtful, grounded, and compassionate, and we are so honored to have him here to share his story and his insights with us today. Ryan, welcome to Cultimatum.
Thank you for having me here. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we're excited.
And another new cult.
Melody, tell the folks that you were on Ryan's podcast last week.
It hasn't aired yet, but I've recorded. So I interviewed on Ryan's podcast. So if you want to go listen to my episode, I don't know what the number is going to be yet, but on Ryan's podcast, The Truth That Heals, I told my story for his show. And Ryan's now here to share his story with us. So we're excited.
Yeah, so I'm excited to share a little bit about the background that I have and how I was inside of the crazy cult life. So yeah, feel free to ask me whatever. I mean, I'm
Okay.
open book.
Were you born into it?
That's a good question. No, I wasn't born into it. I was raised Catholic, born and raised Catholic. But the group that I joined later on in life, very deceptive because in Catholicism you have a variety of groups within Catholicism. For example, you have like the Franciscans, you have Jesuits, and then there's so many. There's like so many freaking groups. But then you have other groups that are a little bit like they're under the radar of suspicion. Like for example, the Opus Dei. You have the Legionnaires of Christ, and then you have the group that I joined. So I joined in the middle of high school because as a practicing Catholic, young, I had a vision of doing some kind of service, not necessarily becoming a priest, but just I had an inclination to do something. But I encountered this group and they brought upon me this urgency that if I don't leave now and follow, as they would say, follow God, which I know that they were being very manipulative. Well, with that fear of if I don't follow God now, then I would be, and then there were all these follow-ups. I would be cursed, my family would be cursed, I would be doomed, all of this fear. So I left at the age of like right when I turned 17, like a few weeks later, I got on the plane and went to Delaware and joined. Because in Catholicism, you have like I mentioned earlier, you have a bunch of religious groups. And the way it's supposed to be is that these groups, whether they're in a diocese or like let's say in an area, they're supposed to have uh, like I guess you could say, just to make it simplified, the permission from the bishop to be in that district. You can't just pop up and say, hey, we have we're going to function. But from what I learned later on was that this group would be lying to bishops, lying to families, going from place to place, and it was very it, it was like masquerading. And so me at a young age, I would see the founder, I would see the other members, and first they have like that love bombing, making friends with you, and that's kind of how I started getting in contact with them.
I have a quick question, Ryan. Is this a Catholic-based cult? Is it a Catholic spinoff?
No, I would say because that's a good question, but like so like in Catholicism, you have these groups which they are allowed. You're allowed to start groups. There are prayer groups, and then there are like religious societies where you call it like consecrated life. So you have like these like subdivisions, like communities, which are allowed. However, the proper procedure or protocol would be that, one, you have permission from the bishop, and two, if you're establishing a religious community, there has to be a constitution, there has to be evaluations, there has to be follow-ups, there has to be a lot of legalities that go behind that. But what I had discovered was that this group, like the founder, he would always like for example, because I'm from Los Angeles. Currently, I'm not in Los Angeles. So they would be in LA, but then they would get kicked out by the bishop. The bishop was like, "What the hell are y'all doing here? Like, hey, like you're not even like approved or recognized." And so they would go somewhere else, but then they would always visit LA, and like the appearance is that they are fully working with the Vatican or working with like doing the right thing. They would pose as like the correct way of Catholicism, but so it's not like it's not like a splinter. It's a lot more complicated than that.
It sounds like it. So they kind of did they follow a lot of the Catholic beliefs?
Yeah, I mean, we're Catholic. It's a Catholic group, but then like
Okay.
so the deception is one, working in a diocese without the permission of the bishop, and the way they would get around that was by, one, they wouldn't tell the people. They would keep that information very secretive, and if any of that information gets found out by people, they would say, "Oh, it's just misinformation." So it's like so in the religion of Catholicism, you have what do you call it, like our schismatics, those who really jump off the ship and make their own church kind of thing. While this community, they're very close to that, but they won't like it's like the founder, he's trying to be very careful because I think he wants to disguise himself as being truly genuine, but then it's really really messy.
So
Okay,
does he almost hide under the umbrella of Catholicism?
Well, it's a Catholic group,
let,
so
let me jump in here.
yeah.
Okay.
So, and Melody, I finally get to talk to somebody who grew up Catholic like me. So, so I'm going to try to pivot this because I'm having trouble following this too. So, Ryan, I was brought up a devout Roman Catholic, and I mean, when I asked you if you were born into your religion, I was born into, baptized. My parents were were like part of the church. My mother was a holy Eucharistic minister. She was one of the first female priests that could give out communion back in 1990 or something. Uh, we were right outside the New York City diocese, the Diocese of Rockville Center. So I knew the bishops. I had dinner with the bishops. I went to black tie affairs with the bishops. So I'm very, very, very immersed in the Catholic religion and the structure in the New York City area. Is this what you're describing, these groups? Is this something new in the last 20 something years?
So they were I mean, okay, so like the founder, the bit of his history, he was a Salesian priest. Salesians, they were founded in the 1800s, in Turin, I believe, and it's a legit religious group. They went through all of their background checks. So each religious group, as I was saying earlier, they're supposed to go through like their, I guess, like background checks. It's not only a simple background check, but it's really a lot of evaluation, paperwork, submissions to submitting a lot of things to to Rome, the constitution of the community, because each community has its way of life. So, like for example, the Franciscans, you're not going to see them teaching
Correct.
science. You're going to
No.
see them really working with the so I hope you're starting to kind of grasp where I'm going with this.
Yes, the
S-
Franciscans were a subgroup of the Catholics. They had their own.
It's a community founded by Saint Francis, like in I
Right.
forgot, like
Yes.
1100s.
Okay. So what you're saying that these groups were not Franciscans, but something along those lines. It was a branch off of the Catholic Church that was started by somebody who tried to would you say they tried to piggyback off the Catholic Church?
No, 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 no. A very good question. No, they're not. They're not piggybacking. It's because in Catholicism, you are like there is an allowance to start like different prayer groups. So they're called
Correct.
religious communities.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to get to is that each community still has to go through the proper channels. It can't be like, okay, I'm starting a group and I can like let's say if I was the founder, Father Bing, his name was Father Bing. Let's say I'm Father Bing. I can't go and say, all right, I'm starting a community. I'm gonna go and establish a location. You can't do that. You still have to. There's really it's. I know it's. I hope it's.
Okay, just
It can
let
be very
me
confusing.
so did they actually do that? So they did that, right? Father
So
Bing
yes, they
did
did
that.
that. They did that in Delaware. So they did it first. They get
Okay.
established first in the Philippines. Then they come to America. So they get a place in Wilmington Diocese where they're permitted. They're permitted to start their community, do some of their missions, and like their way of life was helping families and helping Catholic families. It's not like, well, I'll be more specific, helping Catholics to pray together. So they'd go to the families that we were invited to, Catholic families, and we just teach them like how to read the Bible, how to pray. Very simple. And I was kind of attracted to that. It was very peaceful, very cool, but then what happened was, okay, so they're established in the Philippines, they're established in Wilmington Diocese in Dover, Delaware. And then what the founder would do was send his missionaries or the people he would recruit to different places, different locations. So they go to LA. And then what happens in LA, where I'm from, is that they're recruiting all of these people and they're there first. They have permission to stay first originally. So they're staying in LA for like a couple years. But then from what I'm aware of is that the bishop there is seeing that people are getting brainwashed or like there's reports. Like he's not seeing it for himself, but he's getting these reports. So he removes his permission for this group to stay within the LA diocese. But what happened is that instead of being upfront with those like with people like me, they hid that information. So in my mind, as a practicing Catholic at that time, as I'm thinking, this group is doing the proper things. They're doing the proper channels. But what's really happening is that there's just a lot of deceit going on. And I hope I'm still kind of answering a bit of your question. I know it's so easy for me to go in so many different directions.
No, I'm fully understanding what's going on now. Okay.
Yes. Me too. Me too. I'm following.
Yeah.
But I do have, I mean, so can you explain like what were some of the cult like teachings? Like, did it fit the bite model? Did you put it against the bite model? And or what were the things that you started noticing that started making you go, hey, wait a minute here?
So I think originally, well, first the recruitment. The recruitment was based out of love bombing, and then when I got to the actual place, it wasn't what I was. It's not what I was sold. It was something else. But then now they have that. Well, you want to follow God, right? So they started introducing a lot of this fear, and if you leave, there's going to be a lot of regret. That's kind of the start, and that's kind of what kept me to stay there. And also they're making it seem like they are a legit religious community. So we don't know about all of the deception, all the bullshit that's really going on inside.
Did they have a brick and mortar church? Did they have or a building where you met, where you had, did they have services? Did they have mass or lectures or Bible study? Did they have any of that?
Well, yeah. So I want you to think of like a seminary. So like for me, when I joined, it's not. It's the cult isn't like your Jehovah Witness kind of cult where the whole family joins. This is a kind of cult where they're going to be recruiting from Catholics who don't know all the information, and then they're gonna say, hey, you want to be a priest or you want to be a nun or you want to be a missionary, you can come and join us. and then you join. And my intention was thinking, I'm going to be helping families. I'll be getting an education. They were telling me that I'd be going to Rome. All these, nice. They painted it very nicely. Like I said earlier, they were allowed originally to stay in the Wilmington diocese over in Dover, Delaware. So when a community is given the permission by the bishop, so okay, they get the permission, they can get a house somewhere, and that'll be like their church, especially for like young communities. Since this community was started like in the late '80s, maybe early '90s, so it's at that time it's not going to be having like churches and parishes. It's going to be very small. But over time, later on, now I'm fast forwarding 11 years just to kind of get to the story. Even the bishop of Wilmington, Dover, Delaware, he kicked us out. So I mean, it was getting a little messy.
Oh, you got kicked out. Well,
I
we
didn't get
wanna hear
kicked out.
that.
I mean, the
Oh, you didn't get kicked out.
not well, not, I mean, not me, but like so in
Father
my
Bing.
father.
Father Bing.
Well, the community, I guess the community, but it wasn't
Right.
okay. So for in order for a priest to be in a diocese, and real quick, I just want to say that I'm aware that a lot of Catholic bishops have really screwed up and they've really
Hmm.
sent people around, but this isn't the same thing, but very similar. So what happened is, for a priest to be in a diocese, he has to, like I mentioned earlier, have the permission from the bishop. So, okay, in LA diocese, for example, we get kicked out of there first, or before I even joined, they get kicked out of LA diocese. So that means that the priest of Father Bing and his priest, they can't just go to LA. They can't just go celebrate mass. They can't hear confessions. They can't be doing these things, but they would still do it. So later
Okay.
on in Wilmington, they did get, so the bishop was, he sent a letter saying that, like, just to make it again simple, that our status there has been revoked. We're no longer permitted. We have a month to no longer be in that diocese. People are not to come to our place for mass. The priests cannot hear confessions. So that's within the bishop's right. So even though he's a priest in that location, his faculties have been removed. So a after that, so we get a letter from the bishop around 2012, and what happened? They would tell us, "We have to go undercover, there's this great persecution." So this is where they're changing things. If Father Bing were going to be a truly Catholic or Christian person, and he would always tell us, you have to obey, you have to have faith. If he were really living up to what he taught us, then he should have practiced obedience, practiced faith. And like he would always tell us, just have faith in God. Even though the obedience is hard, just have faith and just
Follow the
obey.
bishop's rules.
And that didn't, so going back, that was a bit of the start of me kind of internally questioning, because here I'd been there for several years. It always been like hammered in our minds that we have to obey. We cannot question. And here I see the leaders questioning a simple thing, and the simple thing was, you're not allowed to be here. All right,
Hmm.
just get your bags. All right, let's go.
And I was going to ask earlier, at some point, some of the, I'll call them parishioners, or the parishioners would say, "Hey, we just got kicked out of another town, or now he's telling us we have to go underground." I would start to question that if I was told that the bishop, let's just say Bishop John, said that we could be here, and then 3 months later he kicks us out. I would start to question that and say, what are we doing wrong, or what is our leader doing wrong that we're getting banned from these places? You did pick up on that at some point.
Well, I remember I warned one of the lead, like not the founder, because he's always very, like, he's so special. But I remember kind of warning one of my superiors, because, like, okay, we'd stay in Wilmington where we were allowed. Okay, that's we could do our work there, fine. And for me, I had no problem. This is where I'm allowed to be, fine. But I would notice that they would travel to Rome, they'd go to Austria, they'd go to all of these different countries, and they do missions, and we're a very small group. And I remember telling them, "Hey, dude, like, why? Like, I'm sorry, but like, you're using all this money to travel like to different locations, and we're stationed here. Like, you're not supposed to be doing all of those things. Like, you're supposed to be here working with the people, helping the people, doing something, or at least helping them to pray or something positive. But you're not here, and the bishop, okay, well, first, the people in the churches, they're gonna say, like, what the hell is this people? Why are they here? So I remember telling them the bishop's gonna think, like, why is this community even here? Like, why do I give them permission to stay here if they're not even here? They're going and doing their own things. It doesn't seem like they really care or give a damn about the people here. It sounds more like to me like you guys are just kind of chasing the money. So in the end, when we did get kicked out, I was like, I told you so.
So you said they were going on trips to Rome and around other places. Where were they getting this money? And then you said something about it was a small group. So how many? What would the size of this group be in like in Delaware? How many people? And where was the money coming from?
Very good question. So the size, okay, the size of like I would say quote unquote religious members like me, from the male, let's say 15 let's just say 15, and then from the sisters, maybe another 15 to 20. So they have their house, they have their permission. So we're the ones who are really going through all of like the brainwashing stuff, all of uh the bite model type of
Indoctrination.
indoctrination, yes. So the people who would come to mass, I mean, they're just people just, Catholics just going to mass, and they're not aware of what's going on. So going back to your question about like the money, so okay, so the religious members very small, but then we go to different, so not me, but like the superiors, the founder, they'd go to different locations. I'll give an example of Los Angeles. Originally, they were allowed, so they did have a lot of contacts. Now they're not allowed to be there, but they would still go back. But instead of being, going at a parish, working with the diocese, they'll meet in a hotel. And they'll get the conference room and they'll fill it up, and the people don't know why, but
So they were doing it in secret?
he'd
Yeah.
In
yes.
secret from
But
the
the thing
Catholic
is,
Church, I mean.
well, I mean, the mentality was if they don't know, like what they don't know can't hurt them, and then let's just be a little bit reserved about this. So like what I'm trying to get to is like the numbers. So like they would do that in LA, but they would do that everywhere else. So they go to all of these different locations, especially with the Filipino community, and they have word of mouth. And and the Father Bing, he would say, "I'm an exorcist. Oh, I'm being persecuted by the Freemasons and the Catholic Church." And so they go to all of these like secret locations, and the people would come just to attend mass, pray, and maybe Father Bing would give a few talks, and then the people would give their donations. That's pretty much the role. The role. That's pretty much how they were rolling.
Okay, that's how they were getting their money, was through donations from the people who would show up to their events, so to speak.
That's one. The second way that they would recruit, they would make money is by a member like me. I joined from LA. But what they would do is they started sending these members from America, from Australia to the Philippines. So we go to the Philippines. There, it was full on cult. It was, it went from like 15 miles per hour to 1,000. It was just super culty. I lost a lot of weight. I think my skinniest was between 110 to 115 pounds. Just not who I am. If you look at me, it's not me. But they would take pictures of us, and then so while they'll take these pictures of us in the Philippines, bad clothing because I mean I had lost so much weight. So the clothes I'm wearing is like very baggy, and not only me, but a lot of us. They take our pictures, and then Father Bing would go back to LA or go back to wherever place, and he'd show according to my mom, because she's trying to find out what's going on because I couldn't talk to her. I hadn't seen her, and she told me when I came out that she attended one of his talks just to figure out what's going on. And he'd be showing these pictures, and it's like, please send your money. Our members, they're starving. Also, they're trying to build a church. So yeah, that was true. Like, we're trying to build the church. We're trying to get money for our food, for our basic needs. But did that church or did that like house ever get built or completed? Well, in my time there, no. Like, it'd been years. And the question is, where did that money go? So while we were there starving, or, you know, honestly, I wouldn't have, the only reason why I was there, I think, was because of fear. This fear that if I leave, I'm going to go to hell. But, if I wasn't there, it, many of us, I feel like we were there because they wanted to use our pictures, show our parents, and to make more money. And then Father Bing and his like top people are traveling around the world and making money while we're starving.
I'm going to ask you a question only because I know the Catholic Church, and I know even though this really wasn't part of the Catholic Church, but they tried to latch on. Did you see any best word I can come up with to keep it clean right now is shenanigans? We know there's brainwashing and indoctrination and fear mongering. Like you said, if you left, you were going to go to hell. But did you see any sexual abuse?
No, 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 I didn't see.
Okay.
But later on,
Oh,
I think, especially after I started talking about it, then there were quite a few, not many, but there were some who were beginning to speak, at least, to me, who are, having that confidence to share.
they came
That,
forward.
yes, but because of, sadly, some family members of these individuals still see Father Bing as, even though they're like the family members aren't inside of the compound. They're not inside of the cult. They don't see what's going on inside. So all they see is what Father Bing wants you to see.
Hmm.
Exorcist priest. He's the victim. He's the one persecuted. So some of these people, these victims, don't want to say anything because they know that they're going to kind of break their parents' hearts, which is a very
Mm,
sad thing.
yes. Wow.
But besides that kind of abuse, there was a lot of physical abuse, which, and there was sleep deprivation, food deprivation. There were beatings. I was in solitary confinement, things of that nature. But me, like personally, with sexual abuse, no.
Okay. I asked about where the money came from. So, was this like what a Catholic church would do? Is pass the basket around, or did you work and have to give a percentage of your paycheck?
No, we had we took poverty, so we are supposed to kind of live in a poor way. But like, I
But
mean, I never had any money. It was like a compound. There's a treasurer.
but you had to eat, you had to pay the bills, like electric. Did you print pamphlets? Cult needs money. Every cult needs money to do. He said he was going to Rome. I mean, how was he flying to Rome? I'm
Yeah,
just curious where money was coming from someplace.
yeah. So when I
You
first
might be poor, but he wasn't.
No, so when I first joined, I just knew that there were some missionaries, and okay, cool. But when I actually arrived, then I found out that there were more groups. So, i- so inside you have like, we have monks. They're the ones who just pray all day. They fast like all the time. Then you have people like me. We're the ones who go and pray with the families. And then you have the media group, the media branch. They be the ones who be making the books. They'd be traveling with Father Bing. They'd be making the videos. And Father Bing he'd be recording videos. And at his events, they'd be selling these things.
Okay, so he's selling merchandise, which is probably propaganda, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah. And
Yeah.
well,
So
we didn't have any money.
so how long were you in the Philippines?
Altogether, I would say about 7 years.
Oh,
Yeah, I
wow.
mean, because it wasn't like one stay. I mean, kinda go back and forth.
So, were you still in the Philippines when you started having the critical thinking kicked in and you kind of realized what was going on? Or had you already were you located somewhere else? Were you back in the United States at that point? Or where were you when you were really starting to at least doubt or wake up or have critical thinking?
No, so I in my time in the Philippines, I mean, because it was like I said, it was kind of a it wasn't linear in my stay. It wasn't like 70 years straight in the Philippines.
Okay, okay,
Uh,
altogether.
but my time, like, originally in my time there, I was just fully I don't wanna use the word brainwashed. I'd rather say committed because yes, like, although, like, I was committed, and I say committed because there were some things which I I saw, or not even to see, but to kind of feel, but I would kind of just put that away and have commitment, go in front. But then I got sent back to the US, and they're promising me that I'm gonna be a missionary and do all these things. Instead, I go back to the US. It was like a prison. Like, I was just in Dover, Delaware, like, really, like, doing nothing. Just and then ultimately, like, so what happened was, I started kind of because I joined at 17, so, like, around the age of, like, 23 or 24, I would say, I started, like, just seeing myself change.
We'll be right back after a quick break.
Don't go anywhere. More Cultimatum is coming up.
Like, becoming like, freaking, like, you see The Lion King, he's like little Simba, and then he starts growing up, and he's a adult now. So, like, now I like, I'm starting to become just more of an adult, so I'm speaking to them as an adult. And I think that for some of for the leaders, seeing me change into an adult and be kind of like, I was always polite, I was always respectful, but I was always like, just getting a little bit, uh curious.
Creepy. It's
I
getting
I
Well,
I
creepy.
I wasn't creepy, but I was getting
No, not
curious.
you. No, no, no. Them.
Uh,
Yeah. No,
well,
no.
I was I was starting to see some things, like I mentioned
you
earlier,
were
like
you
with
were
the
starting to
bishop,
find your
like,
own
"Hey."
voice, maybe? Would that be accurate? Starting to find your own voice and question things?
No, I just started to feel more comfortable, like, "Hey, like, I've been here for a while," like, I just started just just nature, just
Right.
being me,
And
and, asking them,
was
like,
that not well received?
I thought it would be. I thought we were all grown-ups here, and then so what started taking place was, well, they kinda put me in isolation. So during my
They
time in I
punished you.
they
They punished you.
but they didn't make it obvious. So in consecrated life, you have chastity, poverty, and obedience. I agree to that. It's like, this is what I'm agreeing to. But they use it in a way to they twist it in a way like, aha, we got you. So with the obedience, the way they would twist it is like, and like Father Bing would always say, like, if you're given obedience, you cannot question. You have to have blind obedience, because if you
Hmm.
don't, it's a sin. You're going to go to hell. Yada yada yada. So what happened was, on one of these days, the superior of the community that I was in, not Father Bing, but the superior of this community, made an announcement saying, "Glory to God." Today, my name at that time was, they called me Brother Joseph. Brother Joseph came up to me and he said, "Hey, I would like to spend my time just praying. So I'm going to grant his wish. So from now on, he's just going to be in the chapel all day, praying all day." So literally, like, they wake me up at 12:45. I have to be in the chapel at 1:30 in the morning, and I'd be in there until like 9 or 10 p.m. If I wanted to use the restroom, I have to, like, ring a bell. They'd bring food and, like, leave it
Oh
on the
my
floor
God.
outside. So while this was happening, at first I was like, what? All right, like, I didn't ask for this, but because I have been I'm so committed not to say anything, not to, like, fight back. I was like, "You know what? All right, I'll just be quiet." But this son of a gun, he's lying. Like, I never asked to pray for the community. I wanted to go out there and do some, missions. And when I say missions, just being with the people. Maybe having, like, a soup kitchen or something. I wanted to be a little bit active in that form. So this isn't me, but you know what? I'm gonna obey. But so during that time of silence, that's when that's part of the reason. I say part because it's not the whole reason, but that's part of the reason why I was starting to have, like, the the chains that I had, they were starting to
Yeah.
get a little bit loose.
I think I already know the answer to this because just when I thought of the question, you said something. So you said you took a vow of poverty, chastity, and I forget what the third thing was. So
Obedience.
obedience. So I was going to ask you, were you allowed to marry? But if you took a vow of chastity, I guess that's a no.
Well, no, because like the way these consecrated communities are seen, and you join because you're either going to become a priest or maybe you're going to be a deacon. But from what I've learned later, because like the way that Father Bing treated like the consecrated life for our community was an extreme. Like he was making us live as if we were monks or like having so like in these communities there are degrees, I would say, or uh, there's like a different weight. So a monk, let's say, like his life of chastity, poverty, and obedience would be a lot stricter. You know, like the nuns. There, many of them are cloistered. They have no possessions. All they do is pray all day and sing, and they work in the garden. That's their life. And Father Bing was making us live in kind of in that form with that mentality. And what I learned later was that that's not the so it's like
Mm.
it wasn't in sync with our way. It's very complicated, but I hope I'm able to land.
No, it does because when I grew up, I know the nuns back then, and I'm going to take a wild guess that I'm almost double your age, but the nuns back when I grew up, they still wore their nun outfits and they taught. They were teachers because I went to Catholic school, and and yes, they worked in the garden, and but today a lot of the nuns that don't because Catholic schools don't have all nuns teaching everywhere. They have become social workers. They have become pillars of the community where they go out and they do exactly what you wanted to do. They're missionaries.
So kind of going off of what you said. So something that I learned later after leaving was that, like for me, if I were to go now, if they were to be doing things the correct way, which they would say, I would be allowed to have an allowance. Before we couldn't have a single penny. But if you're
Right.
doing things the right way, and when I say the right way, I'm kind of saying it loosely, there'd be like a bit of freedom. And for Father Bing, it was all about control and repression and keep everyone like in this constant state of fear. So also it was that fear that had me kind of afraid to be more vocal. I mean, I in my in the ways that I was vocal, it was very respectful.
Okay. Mel has a question.
So I'm going to go back to your punishment where you were being isolated here, and it sounds like the punishment was supposed to make you kind of, I would say, be more committed. But it sounds like that's when maybe the opposite happened, and it really started like you had so much time to think that you started to critically think and almost thought your way out of this. Would that be accurate?
No, I think they applied that punishment to be to make an example out of me, because my commitment was 100%. Like I was
Okay,
100%
so
committed. By the same time,
you weren't waking up during that time. That wasn't when you started waking up, was when you were isolated.
well, there were things that happened during the isolation. So it wasn't the isolation, like it was a punishment. But I was like, all right, bring it. You know, like I'm ready. Like I've been trained for this. I've been through a lot already. Like it's just another day.
So you were still, and he was still in Melody. He was all the way in. So he
Right.
tried to
Okay.
speak up, but they punished him. They isolated him, and he took it like a man. He said,
Right.
"This is what they want me to do, or to my penance." So I'm just throwing words out there. I think what Melody might be is asking, and that would be my next question is at what point did you start to really doubt that this is not what I signed up for? This is not the life that I imagined. Like I understand people who go down to South America and to the Philippines and want to be missionaries and want to live in the villages and help people. I admire them. Those are like the people in the Red Cross and all the Catholic charities and all that stuff. But and I think I imagine that's what you imagined for
Yeah.
yourself. But here you are sitting in isolation, and at 12:30 in the morning in some chapel somewhere just for speaking up or just for whatever. So what point did you say, "I'm done"? Like, did
So that happened years later, but the start of my, I wouldn't say rebellion, but kind of the start of me seeing beyond. I would say not like a psychic, but just kind of seeing beyond the bullshit. Was it started there because what happened was, uh, it's like I had like 9 months of isolation. I'd be allowed out like once or twice a week because I guess like one of the superiors kind of saw that, oh man, like he's not doing good. So I'd be out allowed to go out once or twice a week, which was nice for what it was worth. But something happened where I was they needed someone to go to Nebraska. They needed someone who speaks Spanish. So they came to me, "Hey, we need your help." I was like, "Why? What do you need my help for? Like, what do you need?" I was a little bit grumpy, you know. It's like I don't sleep. Like I mentioned earlier, I'd be in the chapel until 9 p.m., sometimes 10, and then wake me up at 12:45. So a lot of that sleep deprivation. So, anyways, like, hey, you need to go to Nebraska. They need someone who speaks Spanish just to do some, work over there. Fine. I go to Nebraska, and something that I have mentioned in my podcast, but I'll mention it here too, is that we weren't allowed to celebrate our birthdays. Anything that was like
oh,
seen as
another one.
yeah, anything that's seen as like pride or like arrogance or like conceited was seen as like you know typically it was seen as like as wrong. So, anyways, I go to Nebraska and I remember a family there. They found out that it was my birthday. Lovely family. They got me a cake. They made some food for me, and it was like I internally I was so happy because it'd been like my first time at that stage. It had been like probably 8 or 9 years that I'm in the community. It had been the first time that I had a birthday cake. And so I was like I was grateful, but internally I was a little bit like, oh shit, like
Conflicted.
is a bit of a conflict. But then we were also taught that when a family gives you something, just be respectful and just take it, be polite. Okay. So that kind of gives me peace. Okay. It's like, I'm not trying to be conceivable, but like I'm following the rules. Later that day, I get a phone call from my brother and I was like, hey, how'd you get my number where I'm at? He goes, oh, I had a call in Delaware. And I was like, oh, well, great. You're wishing me happy birthday. He's like, oh, yeah, happy birthday. Sorry, dude, but grandma just died. So I was like,
Mm.
and my brother was telling me, like, hey, we would love for you to come and, go to the funeral. I mean, come to LA. We'll pay for your ticket. All right. So after Nebraska, so that's July 15th, my birthday, I think 2009, maybe 2008, 2009. Or no, sorry, like I forgot, 2012. I the next day go back to Dover, Delaware, and I remember wanting to speak with my superior, the same one who put me in the isolation. And I went up to him. I was like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And he's like, "I don't have time for this." All right. So that's where I started changing. It's like, you know what? You want to be a dick? Okay. So I left a note because he has
Good for you.
outside of his room, he has like those cork boards. I left a note. It's like, wow, it's so nice to see that you have time to give to people all over the world, but to a member in your own community, you don't have any time to listen to a simple, like just something that I need to say. So then the next day, I'm already like kind of like disobeying. I'm supposed to be in the chapel, but I'm kind of like whatever. Like I just lost my grandma. I just celebrated my birthday, and that's another conflict. So I'm like, so one of the brothers comes to me, is like, hey, he's asking for you. All right. And I feel like I'm no longer like I feel like I'm changing because for the longest time I really gave my best. I had that commitment where I'm going to obey, I'm going to be humble, I'm going to be meek, all of these characteristics that they want us to be. So I go in his room like, yes, and he shows me the note. What is this? And I started like not yelling, but I was like, come on, man. You're mad for a stupid note? I just lost my grandma." He's like, "Yeah, but you shouldn't." I'm like, "Look, dude, all the other members, they're allowed to go home. All of them. All of you guys. You tell me, oh, I'm supposed to be detached, but all of you have gone home. You visit your family. I haven't even once." And so all I'm saying is that my grandma just died, and my family wants for me to go to the funeral, and I want to go. Is it well? Like, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. And can't you see by my commitment? Like, look, me being in isolation, any other member would have complained, would have been angry. I took it. I didn't complain. I did it. You've treated me unjustly. All I'm saying is that I want to go to the funeral and pray with my family. He goes, look, calm down. I'm gonna talk to your family right now so we can arrange for your flights, and because they have to drive me to the airport. All right. So the rest of the day, just spend it in prayer. So I do that. The next day he calls me. He goes, "Look, I'm sorry to tell you, but I spoke with your family, and they're saying that it's because of the passing of your grandmother, a lot of like expenses. It's going to be very expensive, and for you to come to LA just for like a few days, it's too much for them. So they said maybe we just have Ryan or brother Joseph at that time. Brother Joseph can just stay in Delaware and pray." And I felt like, wow, my family said that? Like, okay. All right. Well, that's if that's what the Lord good Lord wants, all right, I surrender, whatever, I'm not gonna complain. Okay. A few months later, my brother comes to visit, and he's like, "Hey, I'm in the area. Can I take you out to IHOP or Denny's?" So I asked permission. They're like, "Yeah, sure." So it's me and my brother and some other people. And my brother asked me, like, quite like between us, "Why didn't you go to grandma's funeral?" And I was looking at him like, "Dude, are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah, why didn't you go?" And I felt betrayed by my family. And I said, "Well, because y'all didn't want me to go." And my brother tells me, "Well, the superior, your superior, he called us the next day and he said, 'Hey, look, I hear that your grandma died, but brother Joseph says that he doesn't want to go.'" And my brother was like, "That's what we were told." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said that I didn't want to go. "Well, he said that you were too busy." He said that you couldn't call us back because you were too busy doing missions. I said that's where things started really. That's where the change really started.
Because you
I'd
realize
be
you've been
pissed.
gaslighted and
Yeah,
manipulated.
I'd be pissed. I'd
Oh,
be
yeah.
furious. So, all right, we gotta think about time. So take us through. I can only imagine what you went back. Did you go back to talk to him? And was that? Please tell me that was the beginning of your end of walking away from this
N-
organization.
No, it was hard to talk to him because he'd always be traveling, going to other places.
All right.
But what did happen, and I'll try to make this quick, was that maybe around that year, or maybe a bit after my grandmother passed, I don't remember anymore. But that's when the Vatican started to get involved. As I mentioned earlier, each community, religious community, has to go through the proper channels. You can't just like start. If you start, make sure that you do things properly. So the Vatican started getting involved, and I started seeing like the founder and his top guys complaining like, "Oh my gosh, the Vatican, they're trying to send psychologists, and they're saying that we can't do this. They're saying we can't do sleep deprivation. They're saying that we need to treat y'all with respect and with dignity." And so me seeing that was really, so first was the way they handled my grandmother's passing, how they handled my family and myself. That was one part, and the second part was as the Vatican is getting involved and trying to make sure that, and sadly, the church hasn't always done this, but I saw they were making an effort, and I saw that they were bitching about it. I was like, okay, like that was really, it's like a year or two later is when I finally
Wow.
left.
Wow.
Good for you. I mean, I'm sorry it
Yes.
took so long, and I'm sorry you had to miss your grandmother's services. But and so tell us quickly how you left. Did you literally just pack your bags and leave?
So after, no, I couldn't because so after the funeral, like maybe a year later, the Bishop of Wilmington, that's when he removed our permission to be there. So we were not. That's when we received that
Oh,
letter,
mhm.
and so they sent me. So all of us who stayed there, we were sent back to the Philippines. But what they did was they sent people who were uh, unrecognizable to the people in the area because it's another long story. But I was thinking to myself, like, dude, like you guys are being such hypocrites
Yeah.
because you're telling us to obey and this and all that. So that was part of it. I go back to the Philippines. I couldn't I couldn't leave. I asked to leave and they told me no because you're still under obedience. And I go to the Philippines and what happened was I kept getting in trouble for made up things. Like, oh, I don't know, like just stupid things, petty things. I was late to prayer or I was talking at a wrong time and I keep getting punishments. And so I was starting to get pissed off. And ultimately, so I was like, you know what? Fuck you guys. Like, I'm just getting punished all the time for like quote unquote crimes that I haven't even done. Fuck it. I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna have a little bit of fun. I'm gonna live a little bit of life. And so that's how I finally left.
And how'd you get back to the States? Did you at some point come back here? Obviously you did.
Yeah.
You're here now.
Well, the superior there in the Philippines where I was at when I told him I wanted to leave, he's like, "No, you know what? I want you to stay. I think that God has a big plan for you. We can have. I want you to, amigo. I want you to join me, and I want you to do missions with me." And I said, "No, dude." He goes, "What do you mean, no?" I was like, "Look, I've seen this. I've seen this for many years where there's a member who's wanting to leave and you all bullshit them and say, "Oh yeah, you take them on missions, you kind of give them that love bombing." I didn't use the word love bombing, but it's like then it's like, why couldn't you have done that for me before? So I made a deal with him. Like, look, I'm gonna get a job somewhere, but what I want to do is I can leave because he was telling me just go home, leave. You don't want to be here, go. Like, all right, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna bitch to everybody about how terrible a life was here. And people are gonna ask me, "How was the Philippines?" And I'm gonna tell them, "I don't know because I was inside a fucking room all the time." I was like, "We can
Good
do
for
that.
you.
We can do that, or I get a job or something, and you let me stay here. Maybe I'll give you some like little donation from the money I make. I'll give you like I don't know, like $10. Okay, all right." So like I stayed for like an extra year, but I'd go out and do my things, and I have a place to stay. Ultimately, I finally saved up some money and went back to the States. But I wanted to kind
Wow.
of I mean, dude, like, I'm in the Philippines, like, when am I gonna get this opportunity to travel,
No,
you know?
Yeah.
but just not to be part of this organization anymore. I'd be well, let's not get
But
into that now. I'd
what's
like to be
funny
anywhere but where I am right now.
what's funny is that you did end up coming back to the States and talking shit about them. So that kind of funny. That worked
Which you
out good.
did, yeah. Yeah, it's by starting a podcast, nevertheless. So how many years ago was that?
That, was, 2015, January 1st, I would
Oh,
say, was when I
oh,
kind
so
of
you're coming up on 10 years. Or no, you're past 10 years.
11,
yeah.
11.
Yeah,
But
good for you.
I still stayed, so, like, I would say 2016, January 1st. I mean, that's just the date I give it,
Yeah.
is when I finally
Okay.
came back to the States.
Okay, we're gonna Melody and I have a question each for you, and then we'd like to tell us where we can find you online. Tell us about your podcast, where we can hear your podcast, and then we're gonna say goodbye. And Ryan, what just just my mind is spinning. Melody, it's unbelievable, and this is part of the Catholic Church,
Yeah.
nevertheless, not part of the
Yeah.
Catholic Church, but
Kind
okay.
of.
So 10 years ago, you managed to, I guess, wake up and realize that this is all bullshit, like you said. You got a job, you hung out in the Philippines, and then you got on a plane and came back here. Where are you in your faith today? Meaning, are you still a Catholic? And I'll leave it at that there.
Yeah, I would say that I think it was important for me to deconstruct what I learned there. But I've always had a bit of knowledge and, understanding of my faith. And I always try to approach it very agnostically and, always, just be kind of having critical thinking, especially after leaving. But I also believe in allowing oneself to reconstruct. So I think with the reconstruction, I'm still Catholic. Some people will say, "Oh, I'm too liberal." Others will say I'm too conservative. I don't care. I don't tell anybody like how I am. I just say I'm Catholic. I have my faith. I can go pray, and I don't have that cult, bugging me. I can go to church. No one says anything. If anything, they say hello. You know,
So
it's
you go to a regular Catholic church on Sundays when you want to.
yeah. I still go to mass,
Good for you.
but I had to allow myself to reconstruct because originally
Oh, sure.
I'd be shaking like inside because I would be thinking, are because inside the cult it was an end times cult, and we would always be paranoid that there were spies. So
Oh, yeah.
originally, when I got back to
All the cults do
LA,
that.
I
They all
Yeah.
do
was
that.
very scared. But after deconstructing and reconstructing, I felt a lot more peace.
Scientology was infamous for that. They were following people around and watching people and so.
Yeah.
Okay, Mel, you have a question?
My question, Ryan, is if there's somebody listening that might be going through a similar experience or they're in a cult and they're listening and kind of what would be your words of advice to them?
My words of advice would be to find a healthy way to express yourself. If there's no one to listen, and when I say, I mean, finding someone to listen to you. Sometimes there are people who don't know how to listen. There's somebody sometimes this is also advice for people who are not in the cults but are maybe related. Sometimes you just got to shut the hell up and just listen instead of saying, "Oh, you got to do this," and instead of like lecturing like survivors, just shut the hell up. But for a survivor or an ex cult member, maybe you can't find that kind of person who you can trust. Maybe go to a therapist or maybe even just get a journal. But my advice is just find a healthy way to express it. And for me, it was by writing, and then it turned into doing blogs, and then it turned into making a freaking podcast.
That's awesome. But speaking of which, let's go into that next. And why don't you tell our audience where they can find your podcast and where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, my podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, on YouTube, and it's called The Truth That Heals Podcast. It is not a cult only podcast. My vision is to talk to people from different walks of life and just hearing what is their truth that heals. And I don't necessarily agree with each guest, but I think that's the way of healing is just being able to listen. So you can find me on
Right.
those platforms. And if you want to reach me, I think the best place would be over on Instagram at the Truth That Heals Pod.
Okay.
Excellent.
Wow. Thank you,
What
Ryan.
boy, this one, I love this one, Ryan. It took me a few minutes to catch on. I
Yes.
apologize for that. But once I realized what was really happening in between those two goalposts, it was
Yeah.
amazing. So
It
thank you so much for joining us.
yes. Thank
My
you,
pleasure.
Ryan. We appreciate it. And once again, we want to thank Ryan so much for coming on the show and sharing his unique story. Wow, Andrew. Wow, you for one thing, we got a Catholic kind of a Catholic cult
Yeah,
here.
I got to have some fun today with the Catholic Church, and and if you're a regular listener of the podcast, you know what I'm talking about because I'm always going back to my childhood about the Catholic Church, which was not a cult, and I never trying to compare
Right.
the two. But today, Ryan was talking about he was in the Catholic Church, raised Catholic, and that this cult came along and tried to squeeze itself in between all the little groups that form in the Catholic Church, like the Franciscans, and I'm gonna draw a blank on all of them because it's been a long time. But
Right.
in the Catholic Church, just like many other, there are sects that branch off and they do different types of missionary stuff. And for some reason, having trouble grasping the concept of what this guy was doing because he kept saying the Vatican or the bishop would remove them, and I've never heard that except now I understand it. And this took me a few minutes to really grasp that
Yes.
concept.
And I think so. I think our audience will eventually get it too. But it was a little bit hard to follow in the beginning, and I think he knew that because I think the story is a little bit tangled, right? It is
It's
complicated.
bizarre.
Yes.
It's 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 a true cult story because
Yes.
this guy was. I'd like to know what his purpose was. So we had somebody on. I just edited this coming week's episode, Peter Young, and his remember brother
Yes.
Robert or
Uncle
brother or
Robert.
something, Uncle
Uncle Robert.
Robert.
Yep.
He he was a gambler. All right. So
Yes.
his whole concept, I think, was he was just trying to make money to go gamble. That's what I got out of that. What was this Father Blip trying to accomplish? It didn't seem like he was trying to have worldly goods, like because he wasn't wealthy, although he did seem to travel the world. What was his
I
purpose
think I
in
think he was on
creating
a
this?
I think he's on a power trip. I mean, even just the
Yeah,
like the
that's the only
punishments and the
explanation.
isolation, and I think he was on a power trip or is on a power trip
Yeah.
because I think Father Bing, I think he's still alive. I think didn't he say that? Yeah, he did say that. Yeah, he's still alive.
He said he's
So
getting older, much older,
yes,
and he's kind of stepping back, and good for Ryan because apparently when he started his podcast, this guy I guess got outed, and
yeah. I don't
so
think he
good for you,
liked it.
Ryan. I really
Yes.
I'm glad you were able to
Shut him down
do
a
that,
little.
shut him
Yes.
down. Yeah,
Maybe not completely, but at least get him to back off a little. But yeah, that's knocked him a little bit, knocked him down a couple notches anyway.
yep,
So
yep,
yeah, very very interesting story, very unique story.
yeah.
Um,
I'm glad we had him
yeah,
on.
yeah, different episode for us for sure. But thank you again to Ryan for coming on and sharing that with all of us. As always, thank you for listening to Cultimatum. We truly appreciate your support as we work to expose the truth and highlight the voices of these survivors.
If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to rate and review us on Apple and Spotify. It helps more people discover the podcast, creating a greater awareness. And don't forget to follow, share, and keep tuning in to our latest episodes.
You can also follow Cultimatum on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and YouTube for extra content and updates.
And be sure to join our Facebook community, Cultimatum Podcast, where we continue the conversations and keep you posted when new episodes drop.
And if you're a cult survivor looking for additional support and connection, we invite you to join the Facebook group Cult Escape and Healing.
You can also find more information about the show, including our full legal disclaimer, on our websites at cultimatumpodcast.com or anonymousandrewpodcaststudios.com.
And if you have a story related to cults or human trafficking that you'd like to share, you can reach us at cultimatumpodcast@gmail.com.
And if you'd like to support the show, you can do that by using the link in the show notes called Buy Us a Cup of Coffee. Your support helps cover production costs and allows us to keep bringing these important stories to light.
And as always, stay safe, stay informed, and remember, you are not alone.